Hi, I'm Jess Kidd and I'm here in Waterstones Piccadilly to talk about some books that have influenced my book, which is The Hoarder. And it follows a care worker called Maud Drennan who has been allocated a curmudgeonly old hoarder, and she arrives at his Gothic mansion and starts excavating the decades of rubbish to find a forgotten mystery that comes to light. And this directly influences her to revisit her own traumatic past. And one of the books that I like to talk to you about which really influenced this is Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. But what I was really interested to do with this book is to look at how secrets work, and this very much links into my book The Hoarder in the way that it looks at the secrets we tell, the secrets we keep, and lifelong secrets really, and how they influence the people around us. The other influence really from this book is the idea of setting. I mean, setting is so vivid and strong in Dickens's work, but particularly with Miss Havisham's Satyr's House. And I really wanted to take that idea of a Gothic house tradition and work with that. But the other thing that really appealed to me about that environment was the idea that loss and grief kind of stops the clock in that house, and Miss Havisham, the jilted bride, is literally kind of stuck in this moment, and from then on afterwards kind of decays. And really this has parallels with Mr. Flood's life in the way that Maud excavates down and finds out that a lot of Mr. Flood's problems happen from the point when he loses his wife. And so really this gave me a way in to explore this kind of outward expression of kind of loss and grief. So that's this marvellous book and how it influenced me. We're now in the fiction section, and I want to talk about the second book that really influenced The Hoarder, which is this, The Magic Toy Shop by Angela Carter. With this book, we get the idea of a kind of a terrible tyrant at the centre of the story. In this case, it's Melanie's uncle Philip. Melanie is an orphan, a bit like Pip, and she's been sent with her younger siblings to live with her uncle Philip in South London. And this is really a change from a kind of quite supported childhood to a terrifying adolescence. And so at the centre of this is Uncle Philip, who's the kind of puppeteer. He controls the whole of the house, and so much so that his wife Margaret, Aunt Margaret, is rendered silent. So we meet this kind of new set of characters as Melanie has this huge upheaval to go and live in a different environment. And what I found interesting, particularly about this Uncle Philip character, was how I could write this kind of idea of latent threat, of violence, but also this is a very creative man who is building these remarkable mechanical toys. And so this really influenced my writing of Mr. Flood, the old hoarder of my book, who also is a creative kind of genius, but he also has this kind of latent threat of violence and this idea that potentially there are no boundaries with him. We're now on the second floor in the children's section, and this is the third book that really influenced the writing of The Hoarder, and it's Skellig by David Almond, his 1998 children's book. I absolutely adore this book, not least because of the way it came to the writer. He was strolling along I might have got this wrong, he was strolling along the road, and the first line came to him, and it was, "I found him in the garage on a Sunday afternoon," and that was all he knew. He didn't know what he was going to find, his character was going to find in the garage. This story follows 10-year-old Michael, who moves into a new area with his parents. They start to renovate a rundown, tumble-down house. And in the meantime, his sister is unwell and in hospital, his baby sister. So Michael is very much left to his own devices, with his parents absorbed with everything that's going on. And he starts to explore this new environment, and he explores into this kind of garage and finds a being there who at first he thinks is a rough sleeper, is a homeless person, but as he gets to know him, he's not entirely sure who this creature is. And this is the Skellig of the title. And what I really loved about this was the fact that we have this ambiguity about this character. Is he potentially an angel? Is he some kind of owl-like creature? Is he human? And we don't really need to resolve this too much, because the main focus of the book is the way that Michael saves himself by saving somebody else and comes to terms with all of the things going on in his life. So, so for this kind of ambiguity of character, I was really interested in the book, because Mr. Flood has this kind of conflict between a potentially aggressive or a threatening character, but also someone who's immensely frail, which is quite similar to Skellig in the book. The other thing this book does is it crosses this line between life and death. So we have the idea of Michael finding this quite vulnerable, frail creature and kind of helping him back to some kind of health. We also have this idea of Michael's baby sister being very seriously unwell. And again, I was very fascinated by this because my own book explores a lot of those themes of loss and grief, and I suppose the dangers of caring too much, and also self-discovery through looking after and caring for somebody else.